Up until that moment, neither Naruto nor Izuku had targeted any of All for One's direct subordinates to catch his attention. Nezu's plan had been to make the word of their deeds reach a foe's ears gradually, and make it look as if the two of them returned to Japan for the sake of protecting the innocent, not with the specific goal in mind of luring him out and hunting him down. For more than 2 weeks, Nezu had worked Naruto and Izuku to the bone, sometimes even up to 14 or 16 hours a day, solving dozens of crimes every day across the entire territory of Japan. If the crimes that needed to be stopped were too far away for Naruto or Izuku to get there on their feet despite their superhuman speed, Minato would flash over with his teleportation quirk, dispatching them to wherever they were needed the most, regardless of the distance. But now that 2 weeks had passed, Principal Nezu judged that it was enough. It was time for them to make their move on AFO.
After we end AFO's reign of terror, what will you do? Mirko asked.
I'm not sure. I haven't thought that far yet. But I don't think I would want to go back to Japan. Over the past 2 weeks, I got to see with my own eyes what you meant. It's not only All for One and the Liberation Army that are against us, but the ordinary people are against the pro-heroes too. Mirko hummed to express her agreement. I'm afraid that even after taking down All for One, the people would still not want the pro-hero system reinstated into their society, she said. I doubt that my parents will want to move back to an unstable country, fresh out of a civil war. Mom is happy here with the new dojo that she opened. Era-chan finally got to have a normal life like any other girl her age, and she made many friends too. I've also started liking it here. What about you, Rumi? The rabbit girl momentarily stopped playing with his spiky hair, seemingly deep in thought. Eventually she answered,
If Japan's new, democratically elected government will reinstate the pro-hero system, I will return and help bring stability back to the country. However, if the new government decides against doing that, well, there will be no place for me there. Fighting is all I've ever been good at. Being a hero is the only thing I want to do. There would be no meaning in me going back and acting like a vigilante, against the law, when I could live here with you and continue doing what I love, being a hero.
The two kept chatting a while longer, but at some point, Naruto's breathing evened out, and he stopped replying. The tiredness of working the entire day, the comfort of her lap, and her soothing caresses lulled him to sleep. And this is, most likely, the last chapter of this sort, as you can probably tell. Chapter 49. Final Battle, IA. A black sedan with tinted windows was parked in front of a tall building. Inside the car, there were 3 men. A thin but handsome middle-aged man with spiky blonde hair and bright blue eyes, and 2 young men sporting strong, muscular physiques, one with green hair and the other with blonde hair and a pair of fox ears on his head.
Izuku, wrap it up. We'll start in 2 minutes, Naruto said as he double-checked his equipment. The earmuffs protecting his sensitive hearing, a gas mask, a kunai pouch, ninja wire, and smoke grenades.
The boy in question was currently having a video call with his girlfriend.
Was that Naruto-san? The asymmetrical short purple hair, the red marks under her eyes, and the long earlobes left no doubt about her identity. Other than the fact that she had lost some of her baby fat and that her face became a bit sharper, Kyokujiro appeared to have not changed all that much. Yes, I have to go. We are about to start.
Promise me to be careful, she said, her voice tinged with worry. I will. It's a promise. Anything could happen, so I want to tell you now lest I don't get the chance after. I love you, Izuku. The green-haired teen's face flushed at her confession. Come on, Kyoko-chan, don't raise any flags now. Although they had been a couple for quite some time, it was the first time Kyoko told him that she loved him.
But don't worry, Naruto is with me, and his dad will teleport with the rest of the heroes the very moment All for One makes his appearance. We will win, so just wait for me, okay?
Okay, she said in a small voice. Kyoka. Yes? I... He wanted to say that he loved her too, but he couldn't muster the courage to voice out his feelings. I will see you later. Yes, see you later. And with that, their video call came to an end.
Mon, you're so awkward. I got secondhand embarrassment just listening to you, Naruto snickered.
Oh, shut it. Kyokushi-chan. I love you, Naruto said in a high-pitched voice, and with an exaggerated stutter. Fuck you, I didn't talk like that. Izuku burst into annoyance, but his flushed face didn't help his case. Naruto's teasing, however, helped a great deal in easing Izuku's inner anxiety. We're about to have a life and death battle with All for One. How are you still in the mood to joke around? He shrugged his shoulders. It wasn't his first, second, or third rodeo. He lost count of how many times he had been in a life and death situation in his past life. His current life had not been uneventful either, having already gone through 2 perilous moments due to AFO and his Namu creature. We will win, he said with conviction. Between the two of us, there's nobody in this world we can't defeat. Minato also turned to give the boys one last look. Naruto, Izuku, good luck. He wasn't one to say many words, but Naruto knew how much his father cared about him.
With that, the 2 boys came out of the car, and Minato drove away.
Naruto, smirked at Izuku confidently. Now, let's go get this shit done, he said, raising his hand for a fist bump. In spite of the worries plaguing his mind, Izuku found himself grinning too at Naruto's words. The 2 boys bumped their fists together before heading straight to the wide doors of Detnerat's HQ.
Rikiya Yatsubashi, also known to the rest of the Liberation Army as Redestro, smiled as he sipped from a mug of coffee while looking at the beautiful scenery outside through the large window of his office.
Allying myself with All for One has been the best decision of my life. In the beginning, his first intention had been to formulate a plan to eliminate FOL and the rest of his organization. But, luckily, he had decided against going down that route before it was too late. Having witnessed All for One's power firsthand, he knew things wouldn't have ended well for him. Things couldn't have been any better than the present.
All Might was dead, the Hero Public Safety Commission had been destroyed, most of the pro-heroes in Japan were either dead or went into hiding, and Redestro's subordinates were controlling the government.
The cherry on top of the cake was that his company's profits had increased more than 1,000% over the past year. Originally, Detnerat was a company that specialized in producing customized items and goods for people with mutant-type quirks who could not easily find what they needed among the mass-produced articles used by most people. However, ever since AFO and his people took over the government, Detnerat expanded and covered all the holes left in the market by the companies that went bankrupt with the fall of the hero system. Now, Redestro owned a large building in Marunouchi, the most sought-after financial district of Tokyo. He could even see the Imperial Palace and its gardens from his office. The Liberation Army had won. He, together with his allies, had made Destro's ideals a reality. There were no more rules that infringed upon people's rights to be themselves and use their quirks. They have attained their long-sought-after freedom. Nevertheless, even after such a series of successful endeavors, Redestro's mind was still not at ease. He could not find peace.
Why have Uzumaki, Naruto and Vanguard returned to Japan?
He couldn't quite understand their thought process. What's the point of fighting crime and trying to arrest anyone? Especially now when they aren't being paid by the HAPSC anymore and when the very people they are protecting hate them. Villains weren't getting prosecuted anymore, and the population of Japan had turned against the heroes completely after the footage of Danzo's mad speech about taking over the world was made public. Why did they come back after all this time? What are they after? I don't like this. It didn't sit right with him. He could feel his stress level building up. As the saying goes, speak of the devil, and he shall appear. Just as those thoughts passed through his mind, a powerful tremor shook the entire building. Is it an earthquake?
Japanese people were no strangers to earthquakes. However, a second short tremor shook the entire building again, and the sound of an alarm suddenly blaring convinced him that that was no mere earthquake. Re-Destro, sir, we have intruders. His secretary also came into the office hurriedly and shouted in a panicky voice. Are you punks out of your goddamn minds? Do you have any idea who the hell you're messing with right now? One of the security agents shouted as he took cover behind the wall and activated his quirk, turning the fingers of his right hand into the barrels of guns and firing a hail of bullets. A spear-tipped golden chain suddenly pierced through the wall like a hot knife through butter, and the security agent let out a hoarse scream as he got stabbed in the shoulder too.
Don't kill me! Please don't kill me! He shouted when Naruto stepped out from behind the corner. The indifferent look in the blonde's eyes, and the 4 golden chains flailing at his back, menacingly made the bodyguard unknowingly hold his breath from fear. Piss off! Get as far from this place as possible if you want to live. When the man didn't move, Naruto picked him by an ankle with his chains and threw him away, straight through the building's front windows. Izuku was no less swift and decisive in dealing with the opposition either. The two of them were not killing anyone, and they refrained from attacking any of the regular employees of the company, letting them run away unscathed. However, they weren't gentle with those who tried to stop their advance. In truth, both Naruto and Izuku could fly. If their aim had been to merely assassinate Re-Destro, they could have just flown to the top floor, and either Izuku or Kurama could have obliterated the whole upper part of the building without even needing to go inside. But the two of them didn't rush. They went one floor at a time, giving everyone the chance to evacuate in order to prepare the battlefield for when All for One showed up. Simultaneously, they were also giving Re-Destro plenty of time to call for AFO and request assistance. Soon they arrived on the top floor of the building, and they stopped in front of the large door leading to Re-Destro's office.
Why is it so quiet? Izuku asked. Re-Destro was one of the leaders of the Liberation Army, so he had expected the entrance to his office to be packed with villains and bodyguards.
Maybe he has escaped already.
No, Naruto said. He's inside the office. I can hear the sound of his breathing. I can even hear his heartbeat. Very high heart rate. By the way, the dude is probably shitting bricks right now.
Izuku snorted but didn't entertain his banter.
One of Naruto's 6 fox tails became covered by a crimson red, liquid-like substance and turned into a gigantic size before smashing into the wall and blasting it apart.
As the two of them stepped through the destroyed wall, they were faced with a completely different person than they had expected. Instead of the slim, big-nosed CEO wearing a designer business suit, what they saw was a dark, brown-skinned creature, a hulking monstrosity over 3 meters tall, packed with grotesque muscles. Stress output burden. The monstrous Re-Destro yelled and threw the sphere of dark purple energy in his hand at Naruto and Izuku. Massive shockwave burst forth, shattering the windows and blowing up the entire building's rooftop. But Re-Destro's eyes widened when he saw that Naruto and Izuku were virtually unharmed, covered by a dome of golden chains. Once Naruto retrieved his chains, Izuku cocked his fist back and shouted, "Detroit smash!"
Despite the immense power and durability that Re-Destro boasted while his stress quirk was cranked up to 100%, the mere pressure coming from Izuku's smash made him vomit blood as he was blown off like a cannonball, crashing into the Imperial Gardens several hundred meters away.
Not even 5 seconds later, Naruto crash-landed next to him, his hand already turning into vicious claws, ready to kill him on the spot. At the very last moment, however, a dirty black ooze burst from Re-Destro's mouth, and a rancid smell like that of a sewer filled the air. Naruto backflipped away cautiously, quickly putting a distance of 15 meters between him and Re-Destro's ooze-engulfed body.
In the meantime, Izuku also arrived at the Imperial Gardens with his float quirk and watched the mass of ooze with a tense look on his face.
The black ooze had yet to fully disperse when the silhouette of a tall and muscular man appeared, and a deep voice was heard. Air cannon!
Naruto and Izuku scattered in opposite directions, escaping the blast radius of the pressurized wind attack. However, at the same time, they also pressed the button of a special device, triggering the signal for the rest of the pro heroes to come.
Not even 15 seconds later, 10 pro heroes appeared behind All for One, around 20 meters away from him. In less than 30 seconds, another 2 teams of roughly 10 members, each were teleported over.
For someone at their level, 30 seconds was a very long time, but All for One merely stood and watched, seemingly unbothered by the fact that he had suddenly found himself surrounded by more than 24 pro heroes.
My, it looks like I got baited and trapped, All for One said, chuckling lightly. I am plenty strong myself, but even I'd be hard-pressed to take on so many top-tier heroes at once, especially when All Might's successor is among them too. Afo did not have eyes, but he turned his head to look at Izuku as if he could see him perfectly. So how about we level the playing field a bit before we start?
His silhouette seemed to melt for a moment, and then, to everyone's shock, 3 other AFOs came out, for a total of 4. All for One had made 3 clones of himself.
Eraserhead! Fox shouted.
You don't have to tell me. Aizawa yelled back, and his shoulder-length hair suddenly stood up as he activated his erasure quirk.
As his clones collapsed in a puddle of mud, he felt his connection to his other quirks get severed. For the first time since he made his appearance, All for One lost his air of superiority. Now! Ectoplasm yelled, and the pro heroes all launched their attacks at AFO. However, before any of their attacks got to reach FO, Naruto, Izuku, Hawks, and Mirko all broke the sound barrier as they threw themselves at All for One. FO just narrowly managed to avoid Naruto's claw attack, but that left him open, and Hawks stabbed his red feather sword into his back. Alas, to Hawks' shock, despite FO's quirks being cancelled, his body itself was so tough that his sword couldn't pierce more than 5 centimeters into his muscles.
A roundhouse slicing kick from Mirko opened a mortal gash into AFO's carotid artery, and blood splashed out like a geyser from his neck. Izuku was the last to arrive, though only a split second later than the first 3, and smashed a powerful axe kick into AFO's head from above.
Manchester Smash!
As soon as the 4 of them threw their attacks, they also vanished from the spot, just in time for the other pro heroes' attacks to land.
Fire, sand, water, electricity, blood, energy attacks, physical attacks, bullets, and even laser blasts all poured down on AFO like a rain from hell, leaving him unable to even make an attempt to escape, bombarding him mercilessly. Did we get him? Vlad King asked. The smoke, mist, and dust that had filled the entire area was making it impossible for them to see the results of their handiwork. As the heroes seemed to be stuck in a metaphorical limbo, waiting tensely, a sudden gunshot shattered the momentary silence that had been instilled. Eraserhead! Mirko shouted. The ground underneath her feet crumbled like quicksand as she jumped as hard as she could, launching herself at Eraserhead. Unfortunately, even with her great speed, she had been just an instant too late.
A sniper rifle bullet nailed Eraserhead straight in the forehead, blowing his skull like a watermelon.
Dread and horror installed on everyone's faces when they realized the gravity of what had just transpired.
Eraserhead had been a pivotal part of their plan. He had been the most important piece that would have allowed them to defeat All for One. His death spelled not only the failure of their plan but also their doom.
Another gunshot was heard, and Mirko's eyes widened in terror when her quirk warned of the shooter's next target. Naruto! Fortunately, unlike Eraserhead, Naruto's superhuman instincts and reflexes allowed him to just barely dodge the fatal bullet. It was a bullet that went past his head and left a football-sized hole into the trunk of a tree behind him. 3 seconds after Aizawa's death, yet another gunshot rang, also aimed at Naruto again. "Smoke screen!" shouted Izuku in an attempt to block the sniper's line of sight, to make it impossible for them to aim.
But while Naruto surrounded himself with his adamantine sealing chains, to make matters even worse for everyone else, the smoke and dust were suddenly dispersed as a chorus of shouts came from the center.
Air cannon! Even as everyone aside from Naruto and Izuku got blasted away, another gunshot rang, and one more hero fell down lifelessly with a large, gaping hole left in their chest. "Dad! Come and take everyone away! Mission failed!" Naruto shouted into his earpiece before yelling at Mirko. "Rumi, leave all for one to Izuku and I. Go for the sniper!"
2 years ago, the survival instinct of a prey, coming from her rabbit quirk, evolved into an almost supernatural ability to sense danger. Nowadays, Rumi could tell even if someone as much as looked at her. It was an ability that almost bordered the realm of precognition. "You were the ones who lured me out here, were you not?" All for One said with a laugh as he stepped out of the crater with 3 clones at his side. The mortal wound that Mirko inflicted on him and the vicious attacks delivered by the rest of the heroes seemed to have been for nothing, because AFO was unharmed, not even a scratch on his skin. If not for the ragged state of his suit, one would be tempted to think that everything had been an illusion.
"Why are you running now? Come, heroes. Face me in a battle. Like in the fairy tales of old, come face the symbol of evil. Come face the Demon King." Shockwave deafened some of the nearby heroes as Mirko burst at her fastest speed into the direction from which she could sense danger, pursuing the sniper who had been killing them from afar. Simultaneously, the ground under Izuku's feet shattered and collapsed into countless symmetrical cubes as he threw himself at All for One with a scream. "One for all, Fajin, Nebraska smash!" However, All for One and his 3 clones clenched their fists and shouted in a chorus. "Flashfire fist! Jet burn!" 4 blasts of blue fire burst forth from the 4 FO's hands with such intensity that the FA-Jin empowered tornado generated by Izuku's Nebraska smash instantly vanished. Izuku's eyes widened in disbelief as he crossed his hands in front of his face, in a last-moment desperate attempt to protect himself. A gigantic wall of ice suddenly burst from the ground in front of Izuku, and another wall of sand rose behind it too, courtesy of Todoroki and Gaara, who were both just barely standing on their feet after all. For One's group air cannon attack caught them in full.
Gaara was bleeding from a wound on his head, and one of Todoroki's arms was broken so badly that his bones could be seen piercing out through his flesh. Yet they both dragged their injured bodies up and rose to defend their friend and classmate with all the strength left.
Their defense didn't buy more than 3 seconds before the infernal blue fire broke through, but it lasted just long enough for Cementus to rise to a rampart of his own, thus managing to save Izuku's life. Yellow flash started glinting into the devastated Imperial Gardens of Tokyo, and the pro-heroes started quickly disappearing into thin air. However, when the yellow flash appeared again, one of All for One's clones quickly raised his hand and shouted, "Distort?" It was the same spatial distortion quirk that one of the Haya Namu had used to destroy Izuku's arm in the battle at the UA High on the day of the Liberation Army's revolution.
To his shock, Minato suddenly found himself locked in space, unable to teleport away or move his body an inch. Moreover, he felt his control over space further decrease, and a feeling of dread washed over him as he sensed a twist appearing in space.
"Father!" Roar like that of a beast rang as Naruto turned into the demonic form of his Fox Quirk, and 5 claws tore through the AFO clone before it could even react, turning it into a puddle of mud.
A massive tail swipe blasted another All for One clone into countless tiny mud droplets, but as Naruto was about to go for the third body of AFO, he suddenly found himself pinned in midair as if an invisible giant had just grabbed him in his huge hand.
Telekinesis. Naruto inwardly exclaimed, never having expected All For One to have such a quirk. His train of thought was broken as All For One used his telekinesis quirk to smash Naruto into the ground violently, making a huge crater after the impact. While the clone was busy using its telekinesis quirk to repeatedly slam Naruto into the ground, the original FO fortified his body with several of his quirks to hold his own against Izuku in a physical battle. Luckily, during their chaotic battle, FO didn't have the leisure to keep an eye on Minato, or try to capture him again, so he was free to take all the pro heroes away from the battle with his teleportation quirk.
The previously destroyed two clones came into existence again from the original AFO's body, and both of them rushed at the cubified Naruto, who was being pinned in midair with the first clone's telekinesis.
Finally! It's mine! The two clones shouted in glee as they lunged at him with their hands extended in front of them. The adamantine sealing chains weren't as important to Quirk for AFO as the one for all Quirk was, but they were a firm second priority for him. And now, after several decades, after almost losing hope thinking that the quirk had disappeared for good, he was finally going to get his hands on it. However, even as Naruto was being held immobile in mid-air, he wasn't as powerless as AAFO made the mistake of thinking. 4. Golden chains suddenly burst from his back. His telekinesis hold on me broke. The apparition of the adamantine sealing chains not only cancelled the telekinesis affecting Naruto's body, but it also stabbed through the two clones, making them disperse into mud. Whereas Naruto just barely got out of All For One's telekinetic grasp, Izuku found himself in the same predicament, but with no way to break out of it. I almost wish All Might was alive so I could show him what came of his successor, All For One said mockingly, as he clenched his right hand, and Izuku started screaming in agony when he felt his body getting compressed and crushed as if he were in a hydraulic press. However, at that moment, a massive red appendage slammed into the original All For One's back and hit him so hard that his body left a deep ravine into the ground as it rolled and tumbled away, obliterating all the trees in his way. When he got up from the ground, All For One's head was twisted to his back like a doll, and his spinal cord appeared to have been crushed, but his regeneration quirk made it almost impossible for him to die from such trivial wounds. All those injuries were healed in a matter of seconds. Previous chapter. I almost wish All Might was alive so I could show him what came of his successor, All For One said mockingly, as he clenched his right hand, and Izuku started screaming in agony when he felt his body getting compressed and crushed as if he were in a hydraulic press. However, at that moment, a massive red appendage slammed into the original All For One's back and hit him so hard that his body left a deep ravine into the ground as it rolled and tumbled away, obliterating all the trees in his way. When he got up from the ground, All For One's head was twisted to his back like a doll, and his spinal cord appeared to have been crushed. But his regeneration quirk made it almost impossible for him to die from such trivial wounds. All those wounds were cured in a matter of seconds. 4. Golden chains suddenly burst from his back. His telekinesis hold on me broke. With the apparition of the adamantine sealing chains, not only was AFO's telekinetic grasp on Naruto cancelled, but he also stabbed through the two clones, making them disperse into mud.
With a roar, the demonic-looking Naruto lunged at the real AFO next, only for a rock spear to suddenly burst from the ground and slam heavily into his gut.
The protection of his demon skin was formidable, to the point where it made him bulletproof. However, while the spear didn't pierce through his body, the power behind the hit sent Naruto tumbling back like a rag doll.
Simultaneously, Izuku shouted as he leapt at AFO's last clone, green lightning coiling around his muscular body as he raised his leg to deliver a powerful kick.
St. Louis smash! A powerful shockwave flattened much of the still-standing vegetation around them, and the AFO clone raised his arms above his head, groaning as he parried the powerful kick with his forearms.
With him being AFO's last remaining clone, it was more durable than the others, but it still couldn't withstand Izuku's monstrous strength. Just as it began to collapse into mud, the clone spoke.
Heavy. Payload. Naval laser. Izuku's danger sense quirk flared, and he rolled to the side, dodging the massive deadly laser beam by a hair's breadth. How dare you use that quirk? Izuku screamed in anger, recognizing that it was Oyama Yuga's quirk that the Afo's clone had fired at him. The clone collapsed into a puddle of mud after firing that attack, but the real Afo answered his question with a mocking laugh. Why wouldn't I dare? It was my quirk to begin with.
But their conversation was abruptly cut short as Naruto rose from the place he crashed into after the rock spear attack and charged at Afo.
Enough chatting, Izuku! Naruto shouted. Don't give him time to breathe. Don't give him time to think. All four. One immediately used his telekinesis, and Izuku once again lost control over his body as Afo levitated him and threw him straight into Naruto.
Izuku let out a shout of frustration, but he threw his black whip around the broken trunk of a tree, changing his trajectory and managing to avoid a collision with Naruto.
As for the blonde, he broke the sound barrier, leaving a sonic boom in his wake as he charged at Afo. His crimson claws tore through Afo's body, like a hot knife through butter. What? Naruto exclaimed in confusion. It wasn't blood that burst from Afo's body, nor was it the sensation of tearing someone's flesh apart that he felt from his claws. Afo collapsed in a puddle of mud. It had been a clone all alone. 3 clones were far from Afo's limit. Afo could double himself as many times as he wanted.
Behind you, Naruto, Izuku yelled.
But even before Izuku's words ended, Naruto controlled his adamantine ceiling chains to create a dome of golden light around himself. Hypertrophy, spear-like bones, body bulk, muscle augmentation, brawn boost, transforming arms, scale male multiplier, spring-like limbs, kinetic booster, overclock. Afo listed in his mind the names of the quirks he was about to use. It took not even a second for Afo to transform into a terrible creature that couldn't even be called human anymore. He was a 10-foot-tall behemoth now, a hulking monstrosity whose muscles looked like pythons. His skin turned into what looked like scaly armor with bony protrusions, and 2 extra arms bearing the same appearance as the rest of his grotesque body grew out of his spine. Afo didn't attack Naruto, who was protected by his adamantine ceiling chains. Instead, he changed his target to Izuku. Come, one for all! Afo cackled as he cocked back his fists.
Izuku gathered the entire strength of his quirk into his arms. Double Detroit Smash.
It was a move that would get people to laugh at him if he were a regular human fighting in a regular battle. However, the immense power of the One for All quirk changed things completely.
Nevertheless, despite Izuku using 100% of his OFA quirk, Afo caught his punches firmly in his hands.
The clash between the two generated a shockwave that spread even beyond the limits of the Imperial Garden of Tokyo, and shattered the windows of all cars and buildings in a radius of 1 kilometer around them.
Simultaneously, Afo once again used the double quirk that he had stolen from the villain twice, and 3 clones just as monstrous as him came out of his body, rushing to block Naruto, who started charging at him.
You're finally mine now, one for all, Afo said, and Izuku's sight darkened.
The moment his sense of sight came back to him, he found himself in a place that didn't look like the real world. And he wasn't alone.
A silver-haired, middle-aged man stood tall in front of him, an arrogant and confident smirk on his face. It was all for one. Aside from him, an army of hundreds of faceless, featureless humanoid silhouettes surrounded them from all sides. They were the embodiment of the quirks that Afo had stolen over the years of his very long life. Before Izuku could make sense of the situation, the army of faceless humanoid silhouettes charged at him like a pack of hungry hyenas, using their teeth, claws, and any other part of their body to rip, tear, and break him.
Struggle with all your might. It's futile. You're in the palm of my hand. All for One said relaxedly as he watched Izuku desperately kick and punch all the faceless beings attacking him.
Mirko's point of view. Shockwave deafened some of the nearby heroes as Mirko burst at her fastest speed into the direction from which she could sense danger, pursuing the sniper who had been killing them from afar. I won't let them kill anyone else, Rumi thought, her body leaving afterimages in her wake.
She appeared as nothing but a white blur as she hopped from one building to another, running in a zigzag pattern.
The sound of a fourth gunshot reached Mirko's ears, and her danger-sensing ability flared, warning her that the bullet was going to hit her from behind.
What? How? Where are they shooting from? It made no sense for the bullet to hit her in the back because there were no buildings behind her. There was only open space, the Imperial Gardens where Naruto and Izuku were. Moreover, the sound of the gunshot came from the opposite side, ahead of Mirko. Her questions were answered when a bullet appeared from behind a building to her right and made a turn like a homing missile, heading straight to her back.
So you can remote control your bullets. Interesting, she said cockily, and her muscular thighs bulged as she squatted on the street before launching herself upwards. The bullet missed her by a large margin, and Mirko threw herself at the shooter like a rock.
Damn it, came the shooter's voice, and she jumped off the rooftop of the building she had been hiding on, using an airwalk quirk to fly away.
And it was not a moment too late because, merely a split second after she jumped off, the entire rooftop was pulverized by Mirko's axe kick. Don't run away now, Mirko shouted, and stepped on a falling piece of debris that was still in mid-air, lunging at the shooter again.
The purple-haired woman turned around and let herself fall into a freefall while pointing her elbow rifles at Mirko, shooting 2 bullets at the same time.
The rabbit girl was in mid-air. It was common sense that it was impossible for anyone to change direction and stop their momentum without a quirk related to flying. But, to Lady Nagant's disbelief, Mirko didn't need to dodge her bullets.
Luna ring, she shouted as she performed a cartwheel kick in the air, her 2 legs looking like a helicopter's rotor blade as she kicked both bullets away with the metallic part of her rabbit shoes. Not only that Rumi had kicked both bullets away, but she even used the moment she gained from kicking the second bullet to further increase her speed and launch herself at Nagant before she could react. Mirko's flying kick smashed Lady Nagant in full, her shin landing straight into her jaw and blasting her down like a cannonball.
People screamed in panic and scurried away in terror when Lady Nagant smashed violently into the streets below, creating a 10-meter-wide crater with her body. Mirko landed next to her immediately and flicked her long white hair out of her face. She's just unconscious. The visuals would make one think that Lady Nagant was dead, considering that she was lying in a deep crater, her body not moving. But Mirko's excellent hearing picked up the sounds of her heartbeat. Should I kill her? She hesitated.
Sure, Lady Nagant had just killed 2 of her fellow pro heroes. But Mirko had never executed someone after they were beaten. It was one thing to kill someone in battle, in the heat of the moment, and a different thing altogether to take someone's life after they were already defeated, in cold blood.
But I can't just leave her be either. They were in the middle of their final battle against All for One. The whole country's future hinged on the result of their battle now. If she just let the shooter be and Lady Nagant regained her consciousness and came back to attack them when they least expected it, it would be the end for the heroes.
Stealing her resolve, Mirko gritted her teeth as she walked into the crater to Lady Nagant's body. Once she got there, she raised her foot and stomped it hard 2 times, breaking both of Lady Nagant's arms with a sickening sound.
With this, even if she were to regain her consciousness, she would not be a threat anytime soon.
She was shaken off from her thoughts when a distant shout reached her ears. She was more than a kilometer away from the Imperial Gardens now, but her rabbit ears clearly picked up the sound of Naruto screaming Izuku's name. Izuku, Naruto shouted when he saw that the green-haired boy's eyes turned glassy and his posture slouched over. Alas, he couldn't rush to his help because the 3 monstrous clones of All for One blocked his way. Due to his adamantine sealing chains, their telekinesis didn't work on him, but it wasn't like AFO was left without options. The villain had dozens of other quirks he could use.
Black lightning took the shape of a trident in the four hands of the first clone. "Black lightning trident," the clone shouted as he threw the lightning trident at Naruto. With his great speed, Naruto easily dodged his throw, but he was nearly caught in the explosion of lightning that followed after the trident slammed into the ground.
Blue fire appeared in the second clone's two hands, while the two arms on his back shot two massive air cannon attacks. Fire vortex. The second clone shouted as the combination of his blue flame and air cannon quirks from his four arms created an immense tornado of blue fire. The attack had such a wide area of effect that Naruto was left with no choice other than to turtle up behind the safety of his adamantine sealing chain's protective dome of light.
Naruto's chains weathered the tornado of fire, but the Imperial Gardens were incinerated, reduced to ash. Moreover, the hellfire spread outside the gardens into the rest of the city too, into the financial and residential districts. All for one. Naruto screamed in anger when he heard the yells of the people in the distance.